Hello! This week's Friday art comes from sunny Dorset. Yes, the sun has come out, and so what I'm going to be doing this week, sorry for being all wobbly, I'm holding this, is inspired by the English spring and wildflowers, and well, all sorts of flowers really. You can see my apple tree in the here. Oh, it's so beautiful, and the English countryside is ever changing, and this is why I just love the seasons. And so in this week's Friday art, be flowers using watercolour and maybe some other things as well. Thank you so much for being here. Let's go. My starting point was to just come out of my front door, and opposite where I live is this wonderful hedgerow, bluebells, yarrow, cow parsley, wild garlic. This is where I'm going to start. One of the most common mistakes that new students make, and people who are new to art, or people who haven't really kind of worked at it or studied it, is to work too small. Their pieces are just too small. So the first exercise really I'm going to encourage you to do is to work big. Now these are pieces that I did a while ago, doing a demonstration for my students, looking at sort of the yellows of flowers. But this one is actually a daisy. Of course, daisies are really, really tiny, but I really wanted to kind of dive in. And so be prepared to come a little bit out of your comfort zone as we go into this exciting tutorial on wild flowers. I like to start a new project with my own research, and for this particular one I was looking at the hedgerow outside my house, so took my phone out, took some photos, and I've made a mood board in my sketchbook. It's a good way to gather information, to think about the colours and shapes of the flowers and plants that you want to explore, and it's also brilliant to have a reference for when the rain starts and you can't go outside. So yes, but the weather is glorious today. It really is, and it's made me very happy. So thank you for all of those who sent your lovely sunshine, because we've got it. So I'm looking at some of the shapes and the patterns that the flowers make with these wild flowers right outside my front door. Now, I really encourage you to explore your native wild flowers in this exercise. And the reason why is because it becomes much more personal and you're more invested in it. But, you know, sometimes that's just not possible. So you have to do whatever you can. I think I'm going to focus on my dandelion, my bluebell, and my wild garlic. Then I'm also going to look at how we might represent yarrow or cow parsley and leaves. We'll just see where this goes, but we're going to start by putting down a background in watercolour. Now, the paper you use for watercolour is actually really important, but it doesn't have to be expensive. It needs to be heavy. So this is my sketchbook, and this is 300 grams. But you could also use, and this is what I use for when I'm working with students, when I'm working with children, this is wallpaper lining paper. And it's absolutely perfect for doing watercolour sketches and drawings and trying things out. And I bought this from my local DIY store for about £5, and there's about 200 meters of it, so it's going to last quite a long time. Cut it into the lengths that you want and tape it down with masking tape. Now I'm going to be working in my book. I'm going to be using soft brushes, reasonable quality, don't have to be the most expensive. I like a fan brush, and I also like to have a square brush, and I will be using a round one, which I seem to have misplaced, so I'll have to have a hunt for that one. The paints I'm using are by Paul Rubens, and I'm actually going to be doing a demonstration of just using these paints. I'm working with the company over the next few weeks, so we're just going to see how that goes. They are beautiful colours. I say this from the start, but you use whatever watercolours you want. That could be in a tube, it could be in a palette, it's up to you. Then I could have a water spray. This is just one I got from the pound shop that is used for hair, I think. It's just got ordinary water in it. I'm going to be working over the double page, as I often do for these demonstrations. I think it works quite well. And we're going to start off by just making the paper wet. And this is why the paper needs to be quite strong. Now the other thing I'm going to do is to put some spray actually into my paints. And I'm going to start with my yellows. Just going to put down a little bit of yellow. So again, you can use your brush like this. We're just doing a colour wash. The other thing that I like to use is a sponge. So I think I'm going to be using my sponge as well. So clean sponge, make it damp, not sopping wet, just damp. Picking up that yellow, you can see that this yellow is quite vibrant when we put it down intensely, but the idea is that you're going to cover the page. You're going to do this quickly. Don't think about it too much. Just give yourself some time to just let go. So I've got a few little bits of dust on that one, but that's okay. So the idea is that I've got rid of the white. And I'm just going to leave that to dry. Now we're using watercolours, so the watercolours don't fix. So as soon as you start to put more watercolour on top, it's going to affect the paint that is underneath. When we use mixed media, like using acrylic, for example, or gouache paint, they will fix and you'll be able to paint over the top of it. But we're just going to use watercolour in this first exercise. Now, because I'm going to start off with my white wild garlic flower, it's quite difficult, I think, sometimes to paint white flowers, and you need to have various shades of grey. So this is what I'm making up now. I'm using a little bit of the phthalo green and blue. You see, I'm just mixing this, and then I'm just adding a little bit of black and then a lot of water. Now traditional watercolour palettes won't have white in it because the white is opaque, and so I am not going to be using white for this particular experiment. So we're just going to see how this goes. Now I am going to paint directly onto the page. Now a lot of people find this really scary, but this is a sketchbook, and the whole point is I'm trying things out. So I'm just going to put in some of these kind of shapes of the garlic flower before it opens up, and you've got this very subtle bud, which is so delicate. Now I am doing this much larger than life, because the actual flowers are quite tiny. I'm just putting just this down, and as you can see I'm just adding water, so I'm getting that shape, and they've got sort of lines as the petals are about to open. just going to do those there. I just want to keep this very, very loose at this point. This one is just beginning to come out. Just lots of water. I really do encourage you to go straight in with paint. Don't try not to use a pencil. If you start using a pencil, you're going to get bogged down with details, and this is not going to help. We want to have this kind of loose feel to the flower, and you know, if things don't go quite how you want them, it doesn't matter. You're playing. So this, you can see it's kind of coming together. It still looks very messy, and it will do. It will go through a messy stage, as all art does. But I'm just going to put in some of these lovely kind of droopy petals just before it opens out. We are going to be putting in details later, but not yet. Just going to put that over there. Right, I'm just going to bring in a bit of green now. I'm going to be using this sort of brighter green, mixing that to my palette. Putting in there. Leaving that bit to dry as I move over to this page where I'm going to do my bluebell. English bluebells are very small, very delicate, and they have this really lovely sky blue, which is quite difficult to replicate. So I'm mixing a whole variety of blues here, and I might just go in and change it, but we'll see how we go. Again, some of these I've opened up, but some of them, they're not quite there yet. I'm just going to bring in some, yeah, this is not quite the right blue, but we'll go with it for the minute. I'm just going to put in, I'm going to switch to my larger brush because I think I just want to have some hints of blue, and then can go in with some more detail later. Because if you go into a bluebell forest, you don't see the individual blue, do you? You don't see those. Oh, that's better. So I'm just going to pop in these. So again, it's looking very, very messy at the minute, and that's fine. I'm going to leave that to dry for a little bit and then work into it. Now, while I'm leaving that blue to dry, I'm going to work on this section, and this is where I'm going to do my dandelion and buttercup. So we're going back into the yellow. Now, I love dandelions. I know they're a bit annoying for some people when they turn up in your beautifully manicured lawn, but I really like them. And so I'm going to build up this gorgeous orangey yellow here, and we're going to go straight in. Now, with a dandelion, you have these long petals, and this is going to be good for this particular section because I want you to see that I'm going straight off the page. Don't be restricted by your page. I think you can create some really, really exciting compositions when we take our work off the page, because it helps the viewer to realize that, perhaps this is just like a wildflower meadow, and it makes it very exciting. Now, all of that is the same I've just used the same mix there. I'm now just going to bring in a little bit of depth by going a little bit darker. So I'm just going to make that wet there and add that one. I've got a green splodge on that one. I need to avoid that one. I'm just going to bring in, you see how that just sort of lifts. I love working with yellow. I really do. This is fun. So I hope you're enjoying it. If you haven't liked or subscribed and this is something that you think you might like for the future, then please do that. We've got a lovely community going here over the last few weeks. If you're watching this in May 2024, I have only just started and I've been a little bit overwhelmed actually by such lovely comments. We have an active Facebook page now where you can share thoughts and ideas, you can ask me questions, and that's really proving to be lovely. I'm just going to put in a little bit of dark there, bring that out. I'm going to leave that to dry and then work into it a little bit later. Right, moving over to my messy bluebell page, I'm going to put in buttercup. So in our local woods that at the moment are absolutely full of bluebells, every so often we get buttercups. And it's going to be different to wherever you are in the world. And probably wherever you are in the UK at the moment. I've had, I know that some of you are from different parts of the UK and it's been lovely hearing about your weather. We always like to know what's going on in the weather. And obviously for those of you who are in Australia, New Zealand or in South Africa, you're going into autumn now. And this is what's so wonderful, isn't it? That we can connect with people all over the world. It makes me very happy. I'm just going to do my little buttercup there. I'm going to do another one. Let's just sort of build in another buttercup. Buttercups are so pretty, aren't they? That was a bit too orange, that. So like I've done that, I realised I've made it too orange, so I'm just going to add more of a yellow there. Bring that one in. And buttercups have 5 petals, so I need to kind of put in that 5th petal. Might just leave that to dry a little bit and then work on that bit. I very nearly dunked my brush in my coffee just then, so yeah, hands up all those who have done that. Yes, it's one of the hazards, I think. I might just do a little one here that might get covered up with the bluebells when I do that. In this next experiment, we're going to get a little bit playful. I'm using acrylic paints in yellows, lemons, fluorescent orange and white. And I'm going to be using a toilet roll and a paper cup. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut into the paper cup like this. I'm not measuring it, I'm just cutting in just a sort of 3 centimetres, about, you know, just over an inch, all the way round the cup like that. I'm going to do that all the way around, and I'm going to do the same with the toilet roll. So I'm just making these little cuts, and these are going to be used for mark making to create a whole field of dandelions. So I've cut all the way round. This is my paper cup. Just going to spread You see where this is going, can't you? Look at that. That's gorgeous, isn't it? So that's like that. And with this one, just going to spread all those out like that. So I'm going to be using these as mark making tools. But first of all, I want to create a background. Still going to be using these colours, and similar to where I kind of trashed the sketchbook in one of my tutorials, I'm going to do a similar thing here. So I've got a damp sponge. I'm just going to take a little bit of the yellow here. So it's not very wet, so it will dry really quickly. I just want to have this sort of a flow across the page. Nothing defined, just really getting rid of some of the white. If you want to use a brush to do this, you can. If you want to use gloves, that's fine. It's whatever works for you. Okay, now I am actually going to put a tiny bit of white in here as well. But I want to have this as an impression that this is full of sunflowers. Now I've got my paint here, but what I'm going to do is get another plate, and I'm going to take some of the paint and I'm going to mix it like this. You'll see why in a moment. I'm then going to take my toilet roll. I'm going to put that in there. Might need a bit more paint. I'm just putting my tool into the paint here, and then I'm just going to dab across the page like this. And they are my little sunflowers. Just going to wiggle those a bit like that. Loving that. That looks amazing, and that's what the paint looks like at the moment. And now I'm going to do the same with another plate with orange. So I've got my orange. I'm using the same one that I had the yellow on. And I'm just going to do little dabs with the orange. Same sort of place where I had the bit before. Just going to do a bit more there, like this, like in that. Just a few dabs here and there. So that's quite fun. And I'm now going to do white with my coffee cup. Just going to dab that on there. Marks onto the page. Like that. I'm just going to get my, look at that, that's gorgeous. I'm loving it. I'm going to put that into the white. Just going to dab little ends across there. I do actually use my paper plates for collage and sculpture and things like that. So I try not to waste anything at all. And I am going to use that because I really like it. I'm now going to use my cork onto the orange, sort of a mixture of orange and the yellow. And I'm just going to do some bits in the centre of some of these, like this. Might just put a few around the edges as well, like that. Now I'm going to use my scraper. I'm going to pick up some of the colours that we've been using, and I'm just put that one over there. I'm going to start to kind of fill in some of the gaps, scraping some of these colours into each other. Others I will just leave as they are. So it's very free. So you can use this technique for all sorts of things. Just very free, very flowing. Like that. Just a few more. Over that. Then I'm going to leave that to dry completely. Now there's some quite thick paint on there, so it does need to dry probably for an hour, maybe even longer. And while that's drying, I'm going to go back to the watercolour. So I've come back to my watercolour, and I'm going to do more detail now on the bluebells. And so I'm mixing my colours, and I'm using a very fine brush for this, using a lot of water to get that blue. And I want this idea of these being very, very delicate. So I've got my source, so I am looking at my bluebell as I'm doing this, and it will just start to come together bit by bit over the top of what we've just done. And the colours underneath will interact. It's not like acrylic, it won't be fixed, and so we work with that. Just going to do that there. You can see I'm using the different shades of blue because I like how that works and how it looks. If you imagine the bluebells in the wood with the dappled light shining on them through the trees. I think that's why I love bluebell woods so much. Just quite tranquil places. And where I live by the sea, lots of people go to the beach. Have a very beautiful beach, but the wood is kind of forgotten, I think. So quite often we're there on our own. Sometimes see another person walking a dog, but it's that tranquility. So you can see I'm building up the shape, and with the colour underneath it coming through, again it adds to that that translucency that you get with very delicate flowers that I absolutely love. I'm just bringing these together. And again, this is why I don't like using a pencil, because I wouldn't get this. I'd be restricted by the pencil, and that's really not what I want. Well, let's put a little bit of the green now. Again, it's a very delicate little stem. Just putting it in there. So pretty. It is lovely when the bluebells come out. And wherever you happen to be in the world, it would be your wildflowers. And that, I think it's just so important that we appreciate what we have on our doorstep. See, I'm just putting those little stems coming down like that. I'm going to do a few more with the bluebells come in little clusters, and then I'm going to go on to my buttercups. If you can have the actual flower that you're working on right next to you, that's a really good thing. But if not, you know, a photograph is absolutely fine. It's whatever you have. So I'm looking at this, it's so delicate, it's really lovely. I'm going to focus on the five petals, and then the bits in the middle whose name I've forgotten, but that will come back to me. So let's pop that one there. I'm going to work on this one. Again, I'm just using my yellows, my fine brushes. Let's just get some of the yellow here. So combining the yellows on the palette, so I've got all of these, and I'm using a mixture of these. I will quite often try all the colours out on another piece of paper, so you know, you can do that. You know, it's a good idea. To see, you know, what colours are going to work for your particular project. I'm just bringing these colours here. I'm going to leave some of the white of the paper showing, and then this little middle bit here is sort of slightly more textured, isn't it? As if we're looking directly into it. So I'm just sort of bringing that out here, like that. I'm not going to labour these. It's another thing that can happen with students and with beginners, is that you just do too much. And this is really why I wanted to show you this kind of technique, and for you to practice it, so that you've got a bit of pollen on there, I think, so that you can get better and better at it. Oh, I've made a mistake there. Can you see the buttercup should have 5 petals, and I've only put in 4, so I need to correct that, otherwise it would just annoy me. So I'm going to put in my extra petal here, as if it's bending over, which, if you look at this one, it's a bit how that one is anyway. So that's good. Well, I hope you're enjoying playing with me in my art studio. A little comment, see how you tell me what you like, tell me what you're doing or what you're going to do. It's been lovely to have the comments from people who've said that I've inspired them to get out their paints. That's just brilliant. I love that. And you know, I do read every single comment, and I've just been overwhelmed, as I've said before, by the loveliness. There go. If you haven't joined the Facebook group, you could do that. That's all getting very lovely. Very supportive space. So thank you for those people, for those of you who are really joining in with that. But you know, you don't have to. If you're not a Facebook person, don't feel that you have to do that. There we go. I'm going to put those like that. I am quite liking those as they are. I'm now going to move on to my wild garlic. Now, where I live, wild garlic just grows everywhere. It's a bit of a weed, but look how gorgeous it is. It's so lovely. And of course the stems you can chop up and put in a salad and eat them, which is all rather nice. Now, some of these are open, like these ones, and some are closed, and that's what I'm going to do in this little section here. Now, as we're working with white, I've got to create a grey like I did before, using blues and greens and grey, just to get a very delicate colour. So having this in front of me, and again, you can use a flower that's in front of you, or you can use a photograph. That's, you know, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to take that there, and it's similar to when I did the bluebell. I'm just going to bring in just some little bits of detail, but not very much, and it's very, very loose. As I sort of bring the ideas together, this kind of lacy feel. I really wanted to just capture the joy, really, of the flowers. So it's quite. I'm putting a bit of water here and just letting that disperse a little bit, because that gives me that lacy feel. Now, I am using a very fine brush, but I will quite often use the brushes that you use for nail decoration. They're very, very fine, and yeah, I've got a selection of those as well. I like the way you can put lines in, but again, keeping it all quite loose. So they're my little buds. I'm going to go over to this side now. I'm sure you can see that. And I have this bit sort of coming out like this, a sort of triangle bit. And it's just so delicate. Breaking down some of those lines, put a bit of green in, I think. Oh yeah, I like that. Just keep your hand and your arm relaxed. Try not to tense up. I'm just sort of putting these like this. Adding little bits of blue, little bits of green, and then let's get some of these stems through. You do that one. really looking actually at how that bit of the green part of the stem as it comes onto the petals. I'm breaking that like that, and I'm using different types of greens as well. Let me just show you. I'm using these 3 greens here. I'm combining them with a fine brush. Let me do another open one here, I think. Let's get that one. We'll have coming through like this. And then flowing out. Making that very wet. It's just, oh, a bit too dark, that one, I think. Well, well, if you've just laid down the colour and it's just, you think it's too dark, then you just add water. Just putting that out like that. Let's bring this one out. I want these flowers to look like they're blowing in the wind. I like that. I'm going to add a little bit of blue. Again, the wild garlic grows where the bluebells are as well, so they'll have a bit of blue. Just going to pop a bit of blue there, and then look at what I'm doing. Put green in there. Take that down there. You see, I'm sort of building up these lovely, delicate bell shapes. In this section here, I'll do a few more of those, and then I'm going to finish off with my dandelion. But before I go back to my watercolour sunflower, I'm going to come back to this, and I'm going to be using colouring pencils to develop my sunflowers on the acrylic. Now, you might not have used colouring pencils on top of acrylics before, but they work really well. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in a few little details. It's going to be quite subtle. I'm just using sort of browns and oranges, and I might pick up on a bit of yellow actually. I'm looking at my not my sunflower, my dandelion. I planted my sunflower seeds, that's why I was thinking about sunflowers. And a couple of them have started to appear, which is always very lovely, isn't it? I'm just this is very, very subtle. I'm just going to do a little bit. It can take a little bit of time. I'm going to do that on maybe 3 of these. Going over the top. This is why the acrylic needs to be very, very dry. So I'm just going to do another one over this way. I'm just combining browns and oranges. I'm just putting in my other dandelion. Add a little bit of yellow. And I really just wanted to build up this idea of a meadow. The flowers in the field. Just do another one over here. So sort of drawing over the top of the marks. I can quickly, I don't want this to be laboured at all. I want it to be quite free. I'm sort of putting in a little bit of shadow like that. And then I'm just going to put in some stems and some leaves. Again, very, very, very loosely. Give this kind of movement in the wind. And I'm going to leave it like that. I might come back and do some more in a week or a couple of weeks, but that's it for the moment. And we're going to finish off with the watercolour one. I'm going to be finishing off a little bit with this Dandelion. No, not sunflower. Oh dear. So what happens when your mind wanders a little bit, doesn't it? And which happens a lot when I'm painting, actually. I kind of go into a bit of a zone. And I was thinking about my sunflowers. So I'll definitely be doing a sunflower tutorial later in the year. So if you're interested in that, you watch out for that one. So if you haven't subscribed yet, then and it's something that you'd quite like to see more of these tutorials, then please do that. It's a really lovely community we have. I'm very, very grateful to all of you who've contributed to the Facebook group and who make lovely comments over here. It's just so nice, isn't it? It's just so nice. You see, I'm this very, very, very loose. I didn't want to do any details on this. Just wanted to keep it fresh. Might just put a tiny bit of brown. Just little hints. And I think that will be it. Like that. Oh yeah. I really hope you're enjoying painting in different ways and trying out new things and perhaps coming out of your comfort zone a little bit. I think it's very good for us to do things that we're not quite used to. And this is the joy, again, of a sketchbook, is that you can just try new things. I really hope you enjoyed this week's tutorial. I really did. I love working with nature, and I think it's going to be something that we'll explore another time as well. Thank you so much for joining in with Friday Art, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye bye.